Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news. This is Bloomberg Businessweek Daily, reporting from the magazine that helps global leaders stay ahead, with insight on the people, companies, and trends shaping today's complex economy, plus global business, finance, and tech news as it happens. The Bloomberg Businessweek Daily podcast with Carol Massar and Tim Stenivek on Bloomberg Radio.
That's Molly Smith. She's Bloomberg News economics editor. She's in for Carol Massar. We're live from the U.S. Open. I'm Tim Stenivek. It is Bloomberg Businessweek Daily. We start with the latest from our nation's capital and the emergency hearing about Lisa Cook. This is Friday's hearing on Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook's motion for a temporary restraining order blocking her firing by President Trump. I want to bring in Michael McKee. He's Bloomberg News economics and policy correspondent. He joins us in the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. Mike, Judge Cobb grilled both sides, but ended the hearing without a ruling on Cook's request for an emergency ruling. What's the latest?
Well, we're probably not going to hear anything until Tuesday at the earliest. What happened was the Cook people basically applied for a temporary restraining order to keep her in her job until the matter could be heard as far as whether she should keep her job or not. The next step would be an injunction to keep her in her job if that were the case. And the judge sort of collapsed those two ideas with the assent of both sides. So there was a longer hearing than we expected as she questioned both sides on what's going to happen, but then gave the lawyers until Tuesday to file their next motions. So it was a signal we're not going to get anything over the weekend.
Okay, so maybe we can enjoy the holiday weekend, or perhaps try to. At least maybe
yes,
Lisa Cook can try to.
Especially people who are at the U.S. Open.
In the meantime, though... Oh, well, I mean, it's nice here, but we're also very focused on what's going on back in Manhattan. And so tell us, Mike, this was with a district court judge. Everyone's talking about how this is going to be a Supreme Court matter. What are the steps between now and getting to the Supreme Court?
Well, this judge is going to have to rule on whether or not to put a temporary hold on the president's firing of Lisa Cook at some point, whether it's Tuesday or later next week. And then if she says that the president can fire her, that changes the narration, because then the president would probably move to replace her fairly quickly, and you create a whole new set of legal problems there because the ultimate case has not been decided. But if she does allow Cook to stay on the job, then what we would see is the administration go to the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals, this is what's happened in previous attempts by Trump to fire people, has basically let the president proceed. Now, we know that this is a little bit of a different situation because the Supreme Court carved out an exception for the Fed, saying that somebody has to be fired for cause. And so that decision would turn on what is the definition of for cause, which is what they spend an awful lot of time on today. And then if both sides, whichever side loses at the appeals court, takes it to the Supreme Court, I think that would be the basic question. What does it mean to say the president can fire someone for cause? According to the Cook side, the president is using just allegations, nothing proven, and that doesn't rise to the level of a cause to fire somebody. And the Trump side says, well, Trump is the president, and basically he can do whatever he wants. It's up to him to decide what for cause means. So it's a fundamental question that is probably going to end up at the Supreme Court.
Is that the Justice Department attorney Yaakov Roth's argument essentially here? It's whether or not to include something that happened or could have happened before she became a governor on the Federal Reserve. Does the timing of this matter? Does the intent of this matter?
None of that matters, according to Mr. Roth. The president has the absolute right, according to the administration, to determine what for cause means. Now, that opens up a can of worms that the Cook people are trying to spread around on this fishing expedition by the president, because if that's the case, then the law is somewhat moot. There's no point in saying for cause, because the president could fire somebody whenever he wants, because he can make up whatever he wants to be for cause. And so that's going to be kind of the decision the judge has to make, that Does this rise to the level of for cause? Does the president have that right? Now, it's a tough situation for Judge Cobb, except that she's not going to be the last word on this by any means.
Well, this is what I wanted to actually come back to you on, Mike, because I can see a situation in which a ruling comes out, it's not to Trump's liking, and Jia Cobb was appointed by Biden. And I wonder how much more this gets politicized potentially than if the ruling does not go his way. Is that something that's coming up in your reporting at all?
Well, the question, kind of, Molly, is could it be any more politicized? They spent quite a bit of time today talking about how many tweets that Bill Pulte, the Federal Housing Agency administrator, has put out on this, something over 30 tweets accusing Cook of doing something illegal without offering any proof. So it has become quite politicized already. I think that the biggest question is going to be whether the president is able to get rid of her, and that would raise questions on Wall Street of politicization that haven't quite hit the markets yet, because I think the traders are basically thinking that the president will lose. If he wins, that's going to raise an awful lot of questions about how policy is going to be made going forward.
I do want to talk a little bit about the economic data that we got earlier today. Before we do that, I just want to bring everybody some flavor and color about where we are at the U.S. Open right now. You might hear a little bit of a ruckus and see behind us a lot of fans. It's because Carlos Alcaraz, who just won in straight sets, is sitting just a couple of feet from us doing interviews with the media here. So you have a ton of people right behind us trying to get Carlos' attention. And, we just want to talk about economic data. That's what we're trying to do.
Do you think Carlos wants to come on to talk about the PCE report this morning?
I don't think he was paying any attention to the PCE report before his match, Molly.
You don't think so?
No. You were, though. So let's get...
That's what I would want to know. I want to know exactly what happened to inflation in the month of July before I take to Arthur Ashe Stadium.
Okay, well, let's bring in Mike McKee on that in the last 2 minutes that we have, Mike. The data that we got, bang in line with expectations today. Any surprises in there?
The surprises came on the income and spending side. On the price side, it's not really any kind of surprise anymore for the PCE, because the data come in other releases, and economists can pull them out and put them together before we even get the numbers. Bit of an increase in the core number on a year-over-year basis to 2.9%, but whether that leads the Fed to do one thing or another kind of depends on whether you already think the Fed should be cutting rates or on hold. It's certainly not near 2%. But the month-over-month number went down 0.1%. And so if you're thinking you can cut, you're saying, well, maybe we're seeing a little bit of restraint in inflation. The income numbers came in strong, though. In terms of wages and salaries, they were up 0.6% after a 0.1% rise in June. So Americans had more money, and they did spend. You can also parse that by saying a lot of that was on automobiles, as people try to buy cars ahead of the price increases the automakers have promised for the new models coming out soon. So it doesn't really lead us anywhere. I haven't looked deep enough into the PCE inflation numbers, though, to see what the price of haircuts did. Maybe you can ask Carlos that.
Oh, yes,
I was going to say that was the tie-in.
He always brings it home. Mike McKee, Bloomberg News international economics and policy correspondent. He is on top of it all, whether it's everything from the Fed or what they are talking about here at the U.S. Open, which, yes, does include Carlos Alcaraz's new haircut, which, by the way, we learned earlier this week, it was sort of a mistake.
Yeah, I need to still read up fully on this. It was something that did his brother end up doing?
I don't know who did it, but he said sometimes you just have to start fresh, and that's what he did here. And Tiafoe gave him a pretty hard time about it.
Yeah, all good friends there. I mean, the hilarious part, if you've seen anything in Carlos's matches, he kind of puts his hand through his head. It's like, oh wait, I don't have hair. It's kind of funny.
Stay with us. More from Bloomberg Businessweek Daily coming up after this.
You're listening to the Bloomberg Businessweek Daily Podcast. Catch us live weekday afternoons from 2 to 5 Eastern. Listen on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. Or watch us live on YouTube.
On this last trading day of September. Can you believe it?
August,
excuse me.
Right, yeah. It's not September yet.
It feels like September with the decline that we're seeing today.
Oh, my God, yeah, rough. I mean, we just hit a record yesterday. vibes today, not as good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tech really getting hit.
I mean, you think it was the PCE data?
No, I don't think it was.
I mean, because it wasn't. It was in line with expectations. Just, I don't know, maybe had to give up some gains after yesterday's rally. But, I mean, our next guest is going to tell us all about it, so we're going to bring her in right now. We have Jillian Wolfe coming in to join us. She's Global Equity Strategist with Bloomberg Intelligence in the Interactive Broker Studio. Hey, Jillian, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. I hope you guys are enjoying the time at the U.S. Open today. I'm a bit jealous.
We are having a lot of fun, but we had to come back to talk to you because we have the close coming up. Tell us about how the trade evolved today and what we're looking into going into 4 o'clock.
Sure. I mean, we're officially at the end of the 2Q earnings season right now, with NVIDIA having reported. I think what was providing a lot of fuel for this rally was that earnings expectations going into the second quarter were actually quite low, and it provided a really easy environment for companies to beat, because the brunt of the tariff impact was expected to start hitting now. But in reality, what we saw was that tariffs were not actually that influential on these 2Q earnings reports. So what we saw were massive beats, which really helped drive the equity rally. But I think now investors are starting to look forward to how tariffs might start to hurt those 3Q and 4Q earnings. And we might not get as much fuel from those easy beats that we've been getting over the past few weeks. So a little bit of lowering momentum on that side. We've also just seen a lot of profit taking in the mega cap stocks. Like you said, NVIDIA down still quite a bit today. Tech broadly still looks strong for us. We posted a note last week that on median tech was holding up, but because the indices are so heavily concentrated in these large names, it distorts the picture a little bit. If you have a few names going down, particularly NVIDIA being one of them, you're going to start to think, oh, tech must be collapsing everywhere because it's driving all of these indices so heavily.
Jillian, on the tariff side of things, why is it taking, in your view, relatively in what I would consider a long time to hit earnings, or to at least hit the stock prices of these companies? I thought the market looked forward, and there's nothing clearer ahead of us than having to pay tariffs.
It's a great question, and I have a twofold answer. The first is that a lot of companies did stock up on inventories, bracing for these tariffs. So there is a little bit of a stockpile now where they're not necessarily going to have to pay tariffs on imports that are going to hit. We did have this 90-day pause on what the worst of the tariffs were going to be. I think what we're seeing in the market is a little bit of relief that what was supposed to play out on Liberation Day doesn't appear to be happening. Even though the tariff situation, we're worse off right now than we were, let's say, in September, because we aren't as bad as analysts had originally expected in April. They're ultimately seeing this as good news and positive upside. The fact that company margins didn't just collapse in 2Q, which is what some of the concerns going into this quarter were. But we definitely have to keep an eye out on 3Q and 4Q. There's definitely notes coming out on earnings calls, and companies are still not entirely sure. I just think we avoided the worst case scenario, so markets are breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief, but definitely on trepidatious terms right now.
So, Jillian, you're saying here that tariffs haven't been that impactful to earnings so far. 99% of the year I write about the U.S. economy, 1% I write about tennis. But when we're talking about the economy, it hasn't really impacted inflation that much either. We got the PCE data for July this morning. Goods prices were actually down in the month, and services kind of mirroring what we saw in the CPI earlier in August. That's where it seems like inflation is really picking back up again. And if I were a stock investor, I feel like that has got to be a much scarier omen for me. This isn't the tariff-driven goods inflation that we had the luxury of thinking the Fed might look through. This is something that is perhaps more persistent.
It's persistent in its supply side. We published a note, and I'd mentioned it last week, that we're already seeing producer prices accelerate faster than consumer prices, and that's really a red flag for us because it means that companies are struggling to push these costs onto the consumer. And it also begs the question of how much rate cuts could actually help at this point. If the inflation is coming from the supply side of things, rate cuts can't really do as much. They can help release the burden on consumers, but if things just become more expensive for companies themselves to purchase, they're going to have to pass that on. to the consumer ultimately. And they may get some relief from those cuts. They may pay less interest on their car payments or their credit card payments, which could allow them to pay more for goods. But the idea that we're not going to see inflation flow through eventually, I think, is a little bit misguided. We're just starting to see companies start to pay more for these inputs, and it is going to take some time to gradually flow through. Remember, we were on a 90-day tariff pause that technically did restart just this month. So we're only going to start to see this data really hit the economy in the coming weeks and months now.
Hey, Jillian, before we let you go, you and the team out with a note overnight about value having a banner year in Europe. What's the outlook in your view on value stocks over in Europe?
It's interesting because we haven't seen that same thesis play out in the U.S. Value stocks in Europe are really beat up. They've been beat up for a long time, and a lot of this is now just people buying what they think could be a solid deal because it's just so cheap. In the U.S., even the cheapest stocks aren't that cheap by comparison. They're maybe cheaper compared to some of the highest Mag 7 stocks, but cheap in the U.S. doesn't actually mean cheap relative to the globe. So we're definitely seeing investors maybe moving a little bit more towards safety, trying to pick up on some of these beat up stocks in Europe, and we're seeing value do quite well as a result.
Jillian Wolf on the Bloomberg Intelligence team, equity strategist over there. Have a great weekend. Have a great long weekend. Appreciate you joining us from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio.
This is the Bloomberg Businessweek Daily podcast. Listen live each weekday starting at 2 p.m. Eastern on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. You can also listen live on Amazon Alexa from our flagship New York station. Just say, Alexa, play Bloomberg 1130.
We are at the U.S. Open just outside of Arthur Ashe Stadium in Flushing, New York. We're surrounded by about 70,000 of our closest friends and also by somebody who joins us on site every year during our U.S. Open broadcast. Kirsten Corio is back with us. She's Chief Commercial Officer of the USTA, the owner and operator of the U.S. Open. What does she do? Well, if it has to do with money and bringing it in, that's what she does. Think, of course, ticket sales, hospitality, global media rights, sponsorships, digital strategy, business intelligence, and more. Kirsten, how are you? Good to see you. It's
Thanks.
like once a year we get to see you.
It's great to see you.
It's the busiest time of the year for you.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
Well, it's the time truly where you guys all live in a hotel right near here because you are here 24/7, actually not watching any tennis because you're working the whole time.
That's right.
So let's talk a little bit about how the revenue generation is looking for the year. I mean, 3 years in a row of record-breaking attendance. What can you tell us about just the business this year going into the U.S. Open?
Well, I can tell you said 3 years in a row of record-breaking attendance. This should be a fourth year in a row of record-breaking, not just attendance, but over lots of different areas that we measure. So attendance, yes. Viewership across through the first round, we're up 36% on our domestic ESPN, ABC, ESPN2 coverage, which is amazing. We actually had the second highest viewership in Italy's history of tennis through the first round. Amazing. A lot of great Italian players. Merchandise is up double-digit percentages. Ticket sales up double-digit percentages. And with the opening Sunday start to the men's and women's main draw singles play and men's and women's doubles main draw play, we're up double-digit percentages and going to break records in ticket sales and all the per caps related to that as well.
So it sounds like things are obviously moving in the right direction. On the attendance side of things, I'm curious about the balance between the criticisms last year about there were too many people here because everybody wanted to be here. How did you balance that this year with a different strategy when it came to ticket sales in terms of like capping certain ticket sales at different times to make it so people could actually get around here?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we never want to restrict people that want to come from being able to come, but at the same time, we want to ensure that the people who are here on site and have, bought their tickets and paid good money and look forward to planning to being here on site have a phenomenal fan experience. So we did make the hard decision to reduce the amount of tickets that we would sell over this very busy Labor Day weekend. So yesterday was the first day of that implementation.
Oh, okay.
We did start to implement some changes to better manage crowds through the thoroughfares, better manage how we're spreading out competition and content across the different courts, practice courts and competition courts, so that people have more options around the site to experience the different content and enjoy it in a more free-flowing way and not in a crushed way alongside 70,000 of their friends.
Well, just to recognize what you had said before, Kirsten, about spreading out the tennis and also to make sure that people are getting good value for their money because it is expensive to come here. Something I think that a lot of people who I've talked to have said is about having that Sunday start, having the first round played now over 3 days instead of 2. It is technically diluting the value of the ticket, no?
No, I don't know how much tennis you can watch simultaneously, but it's not usually more than one match. Actually, spreading out the first round over 3 days has really helped spread the content out in a way that's actually offered more content to more people so that they can see more. It's been easier on the athletes in many ways. It's hard to spread out the main draw of singles and first round in 2 days. 3 days is what you find at other Grand Slams as well. It's quite common. So in our case, it gave more content across the courts in a way that didn't crush the courts across 2 days. Now you can spread it across 3 days and 70,000 more people can experience it.
How should we think about the revenue breakdown of the U.S. Open? Ticket sales versus concessions versus sponsorships. I mean, on the sponsorship side, everybody's here, and it's also all the familiar names that have been with the U.S. Open for decades at this point. What's the revenue breakdown?
So it's traditional in the way that every other live event property, whether it's sports or entertainment, is. Ticket sales, hospitality, sponsorship, media rights is a huge portion of how this event is fueled. So not every event gets to sell their media rights and is responsible for that. We are, like the other Grand Slams.
And you do the negotiations for it, we should note.
We do, and we work with our partners at IMG to help us worldwide.
So what about? Sorry, I just want to push on this a little bit with in terms of revenue. Like if we think about it from the perspective of ticket sales bring in this much revenue. Is that the most in terms of overall revenue for the U.S. Open, or does sponsorships bring in?
It is ticket sales and premium leads.
Okay, so that's still the majority of where the revenue comes from. Okay,
right. And keeping with it on the ticket sales, I mean, this is something that as we've said, it is an expensive experience. It is a premium experience. You are getting certainly, I would say, a lot for what you pay for to come here, but it is something that people do talk about, that they get frustrated with how quickly the sales go over to the resale market. Is that something that is in your control whatsoever? I mean, to be able to sell more tickets at face value before the resale market takes over and jacks them up to however many multiples of the face value price.
Yeah, well, there's two key factors at work here. One is the overwhelming demand that we experience for the event. 2 is the fact that we are in New York State and resale cannot be restricted legally. So we are unable to restrict how many tickets are resold, at what price points they're resold, and how people choose to resell tickets that they've purchased. So on the demand side, we renew the equivalent of full season tickets at about 99% every year. And we did work hard to make more volume of tickets available, both through the Sunday start as well as for just ensuring that we had as much inventory as possible for the American Express individual ticket presale. Again, sold out of that inventory within a couple of hours. And again, in the public on sale, same thing, sold out of the inventory within a couple of hours. And at which point in time, people can choose to resell tickets if that's their desire. I think it's important to note that our individual ticket price, average sales price point across all the events, all of the sessions, all of the venues is $190. The average resale ticket price is over $500 that it's sold for.
Yeah.
So when people may say, oh, it's an expensive ticket, unfortunately for us, we have to bear the brunt of that perception, but it's not the ticket price that we set.
Yeah, we're just, if you guys are just joining us here, we've got Kirsten Corio with us. She's Chief Commercial Officer at the USTA, talking all things about revenue, ticket generation, all of that's going on here at the U.S. Open. So, Kirsten, you brought up something interesting. I actually didn't know about this, that this has to do with maybe state rules about the resale market and what can and can't be restricted. Is that something then that you guys, obviously as a huge event sponsor here in the state of New York, is that something that you try to work with the state on, to say hey, we want to, maybe change the rules in the state? Is there any way that we can work on this?
Listen, we're happy to talk to any state body, legislative body, or representative at any point in time. Our intention is to ensure that fans have an opportunity to come here and experience the U.S. Open and tennis, are inspired to play tennis, and have an opportunity to come many days if they wish to. To the extent that the state wants to work with us to offer more accessibility beyond the 6 days of the free open to the public fan week, we're always happy to have a conversation.
But does it also tell you that you could be charging more for tickets? I know that's like not a popular thing for me to say, but if you think about it, the delta between the average ticket price of a resale and the average ticket price where you're selling, there's a lot of money left on the table there. So it seems like the willingness to pay is a lot higher than you guys are marketing it for right now.
It is, but it's a balance. It's a balance between wanting to retain accessibility for all types of fans, and at the same time being an event that has an obligation to deliver net proceeds back to growing the game. So it is a balance. I don't think you'll ever see us go to the highest end of the market demand on a regular grounds pass, but in some cases, we will sell that high-end experience to the person who's willing to invest that much.
Well, the high-end experience, isn't a lot of that what's going to be part of this new renovation in Ash, right? That's going to be bringing more luxury suites, also just thousands of more tickets in general to the stadium. Can you tell us a little bit more about this renovation that's in progress in 2027, right? That's when it's going to be ready.
Yeah. So Arthur Ashe Stadium, amazing stadium, largest tennis stadium in the world. Purpose-built for 1997. We've come a long way since 97. And fan expectations have evolved and changed, and we need to evolve and change to meet where they are and what they expect for the next generation. So the transformation will see the addition of 2,000 net new incremental courtside seats. We have the smallest lower bowl in all of North America by proportion, perhaps. And we have way more demand for those than we can satisfy. So we're looking to be able to offer more accessibility, both for fans that want that courtside seat, as well as fans that have been longtime subscribers in the next level, in the Loge level, that number one on their wish list is the ability to upgrade, as I mentioned, with a 98 or 99% renewal rate. They don't have a lot of options. But we will have suites moving up by about 12 feet, same number of suites, but they will be larger with more square footage, more fixed seats for people to enjoy and entertain guests, and that's been long on the feedback list from our suite clients.
How do you guys at the USTA talk about influencers and the way that they're a part of the U.S. Open now? I feel like the last few years it's just exploded in terms of social media.
Yes. Influencers, content creators.
Are they part of officially part of media here now?
So there is something called a non-media credential that we've trialed this year for a select group of individuals that may positively be able to report on and influence audiences to be interested in tennis. Our mission is all about growing the game and inspiring people to play more often. So to the extent that there are influencers, content creators that can help us leverage the U.S. Open to do that, we're really interested in exploring it. That said, it's the Wild West out there. It's really challenging to try to harness that passion, I will say, in a way that's productive for the entire ecosystem and protects our partners who have been with us for so long here.
Well, I do feel like I even see them outside of the gates at this point. I mean, the popularity is just so huge. Kirsten Corio, always good when you join us. It means we're at the U.S. Open. We love being here, and we love chatting with you. Kirsten Corio, she's Chief Commercial Officer of the USTA, and she might get to watch a little tennis. Look for her in the box next to the celebrities later in the tournament. This is Bloomberg Businessweek Daily. Stay with us. More from Bloomberg Businessweek Daily coming up after this.
You're listening to the Bloomberg Businessweek Daily podcast. Catch us live weekday afternoons from 2 to 5 Eastern. Listen on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app, or watch us live on YouTube.
We're going to bring in now Eric Buderak. He is Director of U.S. Open Player Relations at the USTA. Also a former professional player, known for your doubles prowess. Thanks so much for joining us, Eric.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Right here outside of Arthur Ashe. How's the tournament been for you so far? It's only probably the craziest 3 weeks of your life, right?
It is. It's been busy. And with the fan week and all the events we have going on the front end, it feels like a full month. But again, what better place to be if you love tennis? This is the center of it all. So it's couldn't be better.
Well, explain to everybody what it means to be the Director of Player Relations here.
Yes, I joined this role about 9 years ago, straight off the court. Literally ended my career on court 10 right behind us, and it was in the office, a month later. Originally, the direction was, to improve the kind of relationship with players, understand all their needs, and how can they have a better experience at the U.S. Open. I think that has evolved over the last 9 years to, building new events, things like we're seeing in Fan Week with Stars of the Open, the mixed doubles tournament, but really just everything that the players touch, which is so many things, right? From the transportation and the hotels to prize money and everything that goes on with the biggest events they participate in.
So you want to make sure everything goes well so they can perform their best out there on the court and have a good experience. Can you give us the perspective from somebody who was on tour and kind of like what goes into it? I think a lot of people romanticize the idea of being a pro athlete, but then you really think about it, especially in tennis, and you think to yourself, wait a second, this means you're on the road all the time. Yeah. You're never sleeping in your own bed. You're spending a lot of time on airplanes.
Yep.
And
spending a lot of money on all the staff that travels with you.
Yes. It's very expensive, and if you're not one of those household names, it's not easy to make ends meet.
It is. So there's a lot to that equation. I mean, first, the financial side, yes, right? You're traveling the world, and how you need to travel depends very much on kind of what level of sport you're at, right? And I equate a lot of it to baseball, sort of single A, double A, triple A. The single A level, everyone's just trying to survive, right? There's not a lot of money coming in, not a lot of things are being covered. As you get to the double A level or the Challenger Tour, you start to get where there's free hotels, you start to get meals covered, and the checks start to improve a little bit. Once you get to the ATP Tour here, life is good, right? And, you see first round prize money, $110,000. Okay, now we can start to really bank on some real income. Yes, there's huge fluctuation within your checks week to week, but you know that, look, if I'm going to perform a certain level over the course of the year, I'm going to have, a good enough income to kind of cover my needs. Now, if you want to expand to a large team, then that can be substantially more. But, component one is the financials. You really have to manage that because you're an independent contractor. I was with a spreadsheet, trying to figure out how much I was spending each week or each month and trying to survive. But you also don't know your earnings, right? You could make $100,000 one week, or you could be in the red if you had a small check and a team traveling with you. So those swings are real. But the lifestyle is probably as much the real part, which is, I tell people all the time, it's the most unbelievable life. My spring for 10 years was, Monte Carlo, Barcelona, Rome, Madrid, Paris, London. I'm naming the best 6 cities in the world, and we did them, over the course of 2 months in the spring. It's amazing. But you got to be comfortable 250 days a year in a hotel. You're living out of 2 to 3 suitcases. So it's a huge adjustment for a lot of people. If you like the comforts of your own home, this may not be the best career for you, but it is a fascinating experience to see the world. You get backstage passes to see all the best stuff that these cities have to offer. So it's a pretty wonderful experience at all the same time.
I can only imagine. I mean, I'm thinking back to when you just said Monte Carlo there. This might have been my peak tennis viewing experience when my study abroad semester. I met up with my mixed doubles partner in Monte Carlo, and we went to see the semifinals of the 2015 tournament. Djokovic and Nadal playing each other right there. I mean, this was just...
That was just after you retired, right? That was like 1 year after you retired.
Yeah, I retired in 16, so right around the same
right.
time.
Yeah.
So you're talking about so much of this, though, from like the doubles perspective. And I think that's what a lot of people don't get to hear about, because you see, of course, how a lot of the top singles players, I mean, these are people who have, tens of millions of dollars in endorsements and money. How much of that equation is happening on the doubles side? Are Nike and all these other sponsors, are they paying doubles players that much to wear their kits?
No, I would say on the doubles side, roughly 75% of your earnings are coming from on court, right?
That's got to be the total opposite of the single side of the equation.
Yeah, I don't have the exact numbers, but sure, right? I think in the vicinity, absolutely. So I think prize money is the main driver for the majority of the tour. Yes, as you get to the very top, the sponsorships and the off-court earnings will trump that, but yeah, absolutely.
So coming back to that, because I heard somebody told me that you were the genius behind the mixed doubles tournament this year. I would think a lot of you then would want to have this, big prize pool, fivefold what it was in the previous year, have the real doubles players get access to that.
Yeah. No, this was a tough one, right? And I obviously received a lot of phone calls from close friends on tour that, again, this was an event that, given the way that we built it up, the majority of them weren't going to be able to play in it. And we had those discussions. I think the first step we wanted to do was make sure they were financially whole. So what we did with our increases this year, we took our regular scheduled increases in doubles, which were substantial. Then we took all of the money from mixed doubles from last year that was won by doubles players and put that in on top of the other increases. So I think a lot of the doubles rounds this year were up 30% from last year. So there's huge earnings for the doubles side. I think the other thing we wanted to do, which was hard for some of the doubles players to hear, but we wanted to shine a light on doubles like never before. And as the mixed doubles was being played with doubles players, there wasn't a lot of people tuning in. ESPN wasn't really airing it. Fans weren't turning up for the matches in droves, right? What we were able to do was to take mixed doubles, something that no one talked about, no one was really watching, put it in Arthur Ashe Stadium with 24,000 people. So I think that step has been incredible. We're super happy with it. Where we go forward now is to have a lot of conversations and say, okay, what's next, right? How do we grow this to make this something bigger? Do we want to adjust the dates? Do we want to adjust the format? Do we adjust the entry policies? And that'll be, the next couple months of analysis. But for step one, I think it was a big success.
We're speaking right now with Eric Buderak. He's heads up player relations here at the USTA, where he is director. We're at the U.S. Open. It is Tim Stenovic and Molly Smith. She's Bloomberg News economics editor. Eric, I want to talk a little bit about what the youth program looks like right now in the U.S. You grew up playing in the U.S. You played college in the U.S. What do you hear from the folks about the differences now in terms of interest among young American kids and access that they have to tennis? Because that is the whole purpose of the USTA here. Can you quantify for that compared to when you were growing up?
I don't work on that side of the business. I'm not going to rattle off the numbers off the edge of my tongue. I know we are in, I think, at least 5 years now of consecutive growth with participation.
It's looking good.
Which is looking good, which is great. There was sort of a COVID bump that we had because it was one of the first sports you could really come back and play. I think we were maybe concerned that was only a COVID bump, but the growth has sustained, which is really encouraging. I think we're seeing lots of growth in different economic diverse environments, which is great. Youth participation is up, which is good. I think the U.S. Open, we look at this, not only is the revenue from this event going into the USTA, which has the mission to grow the game, but we look at this as a 3-week festival to showcase the sport to our country, motivate more people to go out and play the sport. And so everything we do is from a lens of, we want to earn money so we can put the money into the sport, but let's also excite people about playing. Back to the mixed doubles, people...
Sorry. A little windy here today.
Sorry. That's the Bloomberg News sign falling on Eric for those listening. You're okay, though.
You're good.
I'm good.
You signed the waiver before you got here, so we're all set.
I'm all right. But we knew that people love playing mixed doubles. We wanted everyone to see that, so they go to their clubs and play mixed doubles. So that was one of the reasons. So we're looking at it through that lens as well.
Totally. That's what I played in college. I played for the club team at Syracuse, but you played actually real college tennis, and I want to hear about what that transition is like to go from college to the pro circuit, because tennis is a bit unique in that way. It's not the way a traditional feeder, the way other sports are, the NBA and playing in professional football as well, that like college is such a huge driver of where your career is. It's not really the same in tennis. So can you talk about that transition and if more people are seeing college as maybe a gateway to the pro tour?
So I think, I played Division III college tennis, which is really not the route to pro tennis. I don't think anyone really did it before me, and no one did it afterwards. So I wouldn't recommend that route. I somehow found a loophole.
I played D3, and I never turned pro.
See that again?
What's going on?
I did. A lot of people call me and ask me, and it's a kind of a crazy story how it worked out. So anyway, but if we focus on the Division I level, which is really the reality of a pipeline into the pros, I think through a couple of things. One, the college life has become more and more appealing to players who need those years to train and get better. So those, you can train from 18 to 22, have all your expenses covered at a really high level, and especially in the men's side, where you develop a little bit later in life, right? Yeah. It's more likely to kind of give you that time to really go off on the tour. Number two, with the NIL, now these players can actually not only get a free education, but they can earn some money, build up a little bit of a net worth to go out on tour and have some savings to take that money on tour. Cam Norrie playing Djokovic tonight. He's straight out of TCU. Not just on the men's side, but we're seeing women. Emma Navarro play college tennis. Peyton Stearns play college tennis. So there's a lot of players coming off college tennis to play professionally these days.
And like it was even 20, 30 years ago, a lot of players coming from outside of the U.S. to the U.S. to play D1. Do you think the NIL thing is going to make it even more so that, the next Carlos Alcaraz skips going right pro and comes to the U.S. and plays college maybe?
I don't think the Alcaraz will skip, but the Cam Norries of the world will continue to skip. If you're 17 years old and you're winning, with Grand Slam junior championships, and
you're still going.
The IMGs of the world are signing you, and Nike wants you. You're going pro. There's too much opportunity for that group. The ones just below that who don't have huge contracts being offered to them, those are the ones who are going to go to college. They're going to take those NIL deals, and then they're going to hopefully go to the tour. Use it as a kind of a training ground to get ready for the tour.
Yeah, there's just so much to be played for, especially on the junior circuit there. So Eric Buderak, thanks so much for joining us here. This was Eric Buderak. He's the director of U.S. Open Player Relations at the USTA. Thanks again for coming with us here
Thank you guys for
on the
having me.
set.
Appreciate it.
So we're still sitting here outside of Arthur Ashe Stadium, Tim. You going to stay for the night session tonight?
I'll stay for a little bit of it. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to stay till like 1 a.m. like you and I did a couple of years ago. That was Djokovic.
That was pet till 2.
That was till 2 a.m. That was crazy. Yeah, that was crazy. We'll see what happens this year.
This is the Bloomberg Businessweek Daily podcast. Available on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Listen live weekday afternoons from 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern on Bloomberg.com, the iHeartRadio app, TuneIn, and the Bloomberg Business app. You can also watch us live every weekday on YouTube and always on the Bloomberg Terminal.